Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, human beings of all ages, welcome to Vibrations with Vito. I am your host, Vito. Episode 53. Before anyone says anything, I'm only wearing this Boston Celtics jersey because of St. Patrick's Day. And actually it correlates to my guest here, but we'll get to her. Joel Embiid is still the MVP of the league. Go Sixers. But I feel good today. Nice and calm. I'm in a good mood. Grateful for that. The message of the week kind of piggybacks off of a former message of the week in episode 17 with my good friend Brandon Hughes, former Philadelphia Eagle. If you haven't checked that out, go check that one out. But the message of the week that week was 3 P's: positivity, patience, and persistency. This week we also have 3 P's, but I would say these ones are more essential to life. And those 3 P's are prayer, patience, and progress. And I think they all coincide with each other. You pray, be patient with the prayer, be patient that God is always listening. And with the patience, God will reward you, aka progress. So, be patient, pray, and you'll see the progress. And if you think I'm preaching now, wait till you hear my guest here. Speaking of my guest, let me introduce her. She is a wonderful lady. She is a very special woman. She exudes positive vibrations, excellent energy. She's a spiritual counselor, a reverend, a good friend of mine, Susan.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing really great.
Good.
Thanks.
Good. Nice to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you. It's great to be finally on the podcast. I feel like a celebrity all of a sudden.
Not yet. After this episode, for sure.
Yeah.
But we were supposed to do this a little while back. Mm-hmm. Things got a little hairy, but it's okay. We were going to reschedule a little later, but today made a lot of sense. So thank you for coming.
Thanks.
It's
great to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate you. So real quick, we do work at the same place. You work with the hospice residents, and that says a lot about you right off the get-go, because that's tough, because the hospice is kind of like, what would you say, like end-of-life kind of thing? Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And
when we admit people onto hospice, the idea is that they likely have 6 months or less to live.
Right.
So we're at the last season of their life.
Yeah.
And so we have to be mentally and spiritually prepared for that,
right,
and to work with them and their families.
Right. You provide a lot to them, for them as well. So commend you for that.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think it makes sense to start with an opening prayer. And if you would lead us, I think I would appreciate that. And we would all appreciate that.
Oh, thanks.
Okay.
I will. Well, let us pray. And if you're watching, if you'd like to join us in prayer, please do. O Lord, our God, you are known by many names, but you are our source of life. You are our source of love. We thank you for being so mindful of us, that you have brought each one of us into this world with a plan and with a purpose, that you love us so much and you protect us and watch over us. And we pray, Lord, that the words that we speak today would reach many with encouragement and hope. We just ask your blessings on our conversation today and on this podcast. We pray all this in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Oof. Take me to church, Susan. Oof, I like it. That was great. Yeah, okay. So that was a first, and I appreciate that. As soon as we started talking, like at work, like more and more I would see you, I was like, it's so easy to have a conversation with you. And then I started to see we had a lot in common. Your faith, my faith. Mm-hmm. And just what you do, I think, is very important. And I think it's uncommon. I think it's like less than 13% of women are reverend/pastors. So
yeah,
that is amazing. And so like that struck me right away. I was like, ooh, I want to know more about you. And this is a perfect excuse to do so.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's do it. Before we get into that, so it is a staple of this show that we indulge in some old school wine here. So no pressure on a multiple glass. But would you like one?
I would like one. Yes.
Okay, so we'll start with one. So we don't talk about the brands here because they don't pay us yet. But this is Pinot Grigio. It's probably my favorite. You did say that you like white a little more. You're not a really big drinker, first off.
Yeah, I'm not a big drinker,
Makes
but
sense.
yes, but I am flexible about what I drink.
All right, great. So, folks, you know the drill. Put your volume up. It's time for the pour. Wonderful.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Okay. So, Susan, thanks for coming.
Salud.
Salud. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, great. So I don't know a lot about you. I really don't. Like, I know some things. But so me and the audience, I think, will be learning together, which is nice. So usually, like, I know a lot about the people that I bring on the show. But so this is good. So take me through, your upbringing, where you were born, so on and so forth. So take it away.
Oh, thanks. Well, ironically, you are wearing Boston, which is
I didn't mean to celebrate there.
my hometown. I grew up right outside of Boston, in Needham, Massachusetts, and I have 2 parents and a sister, and we lived in the same house like all of our lives, and I went to school in Needham, went to college in the Boston area. I actually studied chemical engineering. That was my major in college.
Okay.
So when I finished college, I moved to Philadelphia and started working for the government, the US EPA, as an environmental engineer. So I spent the first 20 years of my career as an engineer, and really different. But I always, my first love was science. I always loved science, and I always knew I was going to be a scientist of some kind. Like, that was just a given in my life. I just loved it so much. And I always loved my work. I worked in the grassroots, I worked in the government, and I worked in for consulting. So I had a little bit of different experiences through my career. And so usually people are surprised when they meet me now. They're surprised to find out that I was actually a whole different person, basically. Yeah. And
a different path. That's all.
Yeah. Like, I've had a really unique path, I think. And so when I was around 40 years old, or not quite 40, but I went back to school and studied counseling, Christian counseling, and that kind of changed my life and changed my path into ministry. And so I neglected to mention, so along the way, I did get married, and I have 3 kids, and those kids are 16, 19, and 21 now.
Great. Shout out to all of them. I hope they're watching, and I hope
so.
You think your mother's beautiful.
When my kids were little is when I went back to school, and so it was a wonderful experience. It was really a growing experience, like learning how to do counseling, but also really reflecting on my own life and my own struggles, and learning more about myself along the way. And that really opened a pathway into ministry when I started counseling and really ministering to people and enjoying the process of, like, walking alongside of people and seeing them change and grow in their faith. And that led into chaplaincy. I learned a little bit about chaplaincy, and I thought, wow, that sounds really neat. I'd like to pursue that maybe. So I trained in a local hospital as a chaplain, and loved it. So I started working as a chaplain as well. So I was doing kind of both, like counseling and chaplaincy. So I first started as a corporate chaplain. I would go into a local business, and I was the chaplain for the business, which was really interesting. Because, you don't usually see, like, a religious or spiritual person in for-profit business
Yeah,
environment.
yeah.
So it was really cool. And then eventually found my way into a retirement community.
Okay.
And loved it. Just loved being like a pastoral presence in a retirement community
Right.
with all these people who had such great stories, and I felt like I was more blessed than they were because I
Right.
was like, they would just tell me all about their lives, and it
That's
was so
amazing.
great. So yeah.
Is the place that we work at currently, was that your first retirement community you were
No,
in?
my second.
Oh, okay. All
Mhm.
right. Was it also in the Pennsylvania area?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in
Right.
Bucks County. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So for me, maybe for some people that don't know chaplaincy, how would you describe that?
Well, we think of church as like we go to church,
Right.
but chaplaincy is like you're bringing the divine, or you're bringing God or church to the people where they are, like where they live, where they work. And it's not just like church or religion. It's more like a spiritual connection or a divine presence. And so my work is very. It's kind of hard to describe sometimes
right.
because it seems it doesn't fit into a box nicely. So, but it's really coming alongside of people wherever they are, like going to them and coming alongside of them and understanding how they relate to the outside world, how they relate to things that we can't see, like their creator or their sense of creator, how they relate to other people through love and friendship, what gives their life meaning and value, and how they express their faith. Like what do you have faith in, and how do you express that faith, whether it's a formal religion or no religion at all.
Right.
To really understand how people view the world, and how they view suffering, because a lot of times in chaplaincy we're coming alongside people who are suffering in
Right,
some way.
right.
So to understand what are you suffering from right now, there may be like a physical thing happening, but really it's a spiritual battle.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of spiritual issues surrounding whatever people are going through in the physical sense, and all the stuff from their past may be coming up for them, that like while they're suffering, they're thinking about things earlier in their life that are maybe unfinished or not really dealt with.
Right.
And so all of those things come into play. So I help define for people, like, what's the work that they need to do now, and how can I come alongside them and support them in that work?
Yeah, that's a big task.
Yeah.
It is a big task. It's like heavy also, like on you personally, because you're also like you're kind of taking on their suffering, kind of like you said. So it might be more spiritual, but you kind of and you're kind of like putting a Band-Aid on it, trying to put a Band-Aid on it. You can't always put a Band-Aid on. I know it's difficult, but you kind of mentioned something that like when people don't, like some people don't believe in anything. Have you talked to anyone like that?
Oh, sure.
Not like, I didn't mean to say like that, like people who believe that there is, no such thing. So how do you, because I've come across those people, and it's like it's first off, it's hard to believe that like you just think there's nothing, it's just us, and you know what I mean. So those conversations when I do have with people like that, I want to know how do you think like that, and then why do you think like that. I don't really know if I provide them like a good enough explanation. So how do you deal with those? Not deal with, that sounds negative. How do you converse with those people when they express that to you, knowing what you do?
Well, a lot of it is like what language are they using, and like I'm trying to tune in to them, like where did this come from? Is this something that you carried with you all your life, or did something change in your life? And I find that for a lot of people, there was a time in their life when they did believe in a higher power, or they may even have belonged to an organized religion, and then something happened along the way that changed their mind. Like either they suffered some kind of a hurt or abuse in the church or outside of the church, and it changed their perception of God and made them doubt and question. So that's like a huge area of exploration, is like, what was that and how did that change what you believe? And so some people, you know, they say they don't believe, but really they're angry with God, and they just don't want to admit that. And so it takes a lot of work to kind of uncover those layers of hurt and that feeling of rejection that comes with that. So there's that subset of people that that maybe somewhere along the way changed their concept of God. And then there's people who just never had an upbringing in
church at all.
Yeah, church or
any kind of thing.
Yeah, any type of belief system like that. But I find that everybody believes something, and so you have to kind of get a little deeper with people. Like, well, you must believe in something. Like, what do you believe? And you know, what makes the world go round for you? So, you know, so you really have to. It's hard because I have obviously my own set of beliefs. I'm a Christian, and but I can't proselytize. Like, I can't try to convert everybody. That's not my job. So my job is to listen and understand. And
you're a counselor first.
Yeah. But you know, those people are the most interesting people to talk to, because like, then I can be like totally open-minded with them and be like, well, tell me more about like, you know, who you are and how you came to be, and what does give you value, and what gives your life meaning, and what do you care about, and what's important to you. So I find like those conversations are the most fascinating, and most of those people tend to be very spiritual, whether or not they admit it or not. They are.
They're trying to like block it out, kind of like you could point out, like, listen, a lot of the stuff you're saying indicates you're spiritual. You don't even I feel like the word religious and spiritual are often like confused with each other. Would you say that's true?
Yeah.
And I don't think they're the same. Like, you might not. You don't have to go to church to have faith.
No.
You know, you could be spiritual and. Yeah, I don't. So like, I was kind of. My mom always brought me to church when I was little, so I was automatically kind of thrown into that life. Not that I didn't want to. I was just, my mom always was like, "We're going to church," and I'd be like, "Okay," and I'd sit there, like, you know, when I was real young, I didn't really understand much, but then I went to Catholic school, and that's where they're like instilling the values, and you know, you have to take a religion class, so then you're learning through religion class. Hopefully you had a good teacher. I was blessed that I had very good teachers. So like, I loved it. I was an altar server. Like, I loved, for a second, I'm going to be real, for a second, I was like, is the priesthood calling me? I did have that, like, for a little bit. I really did. And I was just like, I don't know. And then I had the doubts, and then I'm a person that, like, if you are doubting it a little bit, maybe you should avoid it. Like, if it doesn't, like, ring home right away, maybe it's not for you. So when I had those doubts, I was like, okay, like, I'm not going to not go to church. I often go to church by myself now. Not that I don't want to go with my beautiful mother. I love you. I do love going to church with her, but sometimes it's just, I like to go early. So then when I come home, I have the rest of the day, but I was there by myself. There's no distractions. I'm not focused on anyone who's in the church. I'm just focused on the word and you know, feeling good. I often went with one of my good friends, Greg, and that, like, he kind of lives in Philly, a little far, and he would drive up here, and we'd go to church together, and like, that was nice. And it was like, we'd come out feeling like we're about to have a good week, and there's nothing better, like, personally. So like, that might not be for everybody, but going to church and just freeing your mind and just letting the word kind of like shower over you, that'd be my recommendation. Just go and, you know, give it a shot. But so I was raised like, kind of like, this is going to be a part of our life. So were you, was church when religion when you were younger? Was that a big part, a staple of the family?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, my parents are Catholic,
Mhm.
and we went to church like, unless you were dead, you're going to church every Sunday. So yeah, we went to church. I went to public school. I didn't go to Catholic
wow.
school.
Okay.
But I went to CCD, which is like the midweek
Right.
religious classes.
Yeah.
So I had all the sacraments and all that, and I found my hometown church, unfortunately, was not a vibrant church.
Mm.
It was kind of dead.
More on the serious side, old school kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
You like a little bit of like, I wouldn't say fire and brimstone, but more
Mm.
like you get yelled at
Right,
by the
right.
by the
Okay.
priest, and you're
Right,
like,
I understand.
what is going on?
Strict, very strict.
Yeah, very
Okay.
strict and very unhappy. Like nobody was ever happy. Like
Mm.
it was like you were going to a funeral every Sunday, and I was like, I don't really like this.
Yeah, that's not the way to do it.
No.
It's supposed to be a vibrant
Yeah.
kind of like, we're here for the same reason, not because you're like entitled to or mandatory to go.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, you should be there for different reasons. So I understand. So it was more serious
Yeah.
all the time. You said everyone looked like they were going to a funeral. That's not good.
No,
Uh-huh.
and it wasn't inspiring at all.
Yeah, no.
And
Now
I
look
had-
at you.
Yeah. But I and I'm sure I had questions, but I felt like I couldn't ask them.
Mm.
And there was so much I just didn't understand. Like it wasn't sinking in. And I ended up like late in my 20s, I kept going to church even when I moved to Philadelphia. I went by myself, But again, the church in Philly was the same way. It was like nobody talked to each other, nobody greeted you, and there was no music, and I was like, this
Just
is
went
awful.
in, went out kind
Yeah.
of thing. Oh, okay.
And it felt like obligatory and not celebratory like it should. And so I kind of left the church and sort of wandered for maybe 10 years and like not really going to church, but always hungry, like still hungry for that connection to God, but feeling like the church wasn't the place to find God, ironically. And so I ended up coming back to church when my kids were very, very little. My daughter was maybe in preschool. So it was like a long journey of like being in the wilderness.
Yeah.
But knowing that God was still there, but I just didn't have like a place
Right.
or practice to connect with
So you were
him.
kind of lost, but you had the compass.
Yeah.
And you could, compasses are hard to figure out, first off. Everything always looks like it's north. But so, once you were able to read it, he was like, no, come this way.
Yeah,
And
like I never left you.
Right,
Here I
yeah,
am.
right.
Yeah.
So those times where you weren't going to church, were you still praying?
Yeah, I
Okay.
still talk to God.
Mm.
And I still had this sense like, okay, I know God is here because things always have a way of working out. Like maybe
Always.
not the way I want, but they
Right.
always work out.
Patience.
Yeah. And you think like, okay, the world hasn't come crashing down yet, so I think God's still there.
Yeah.
And he's still
Hmm.
attentive, but I just don't know like in what format I should be like worshiping him
Yeah.
or, all that. And eventually I did find a great church that was like the great fit for me.
Right. Vibrant.
Yeah.
Welcoming.
Lots of
Yeah,
music,
yeah.
lots of prayer,
Yeah.
and like the sermons like just brought the word to life for
Yeah.
me. And I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. And my
Okay.
faith just took off
Yeah.
like it should have.
Right. You just had a little late start,
Yeah.
But so, you said a lot of songs, a lot of singing. Sometimes when I'm at mass, when I'm by myself, especially, I kind of want to just hear. I want to hear the word. I want to hear the first and second reading. I want to hear the gospel, and I want to hear the homily. I want to hear the. Sometimes if it's a song I know, I'm like, oh my God, and I'm like, we are companions on the journey, like singing like that. But sometimes I just want to hear the message more so than the singing. But when I was young, I think I used to like the singing part. But now, as I'm older, I want to hear the message. I want to be enlightened.
Yeah.
So when I go, that's kind of what I go for. So you found this church that you love, or that you felt welcomed in, and from that point, did the idea of taking on ministry settle in? When did that settle in? Where you were like, this is a path I want to walk down, and I can walk down.
I really admired the people who were leading worship and the pastor and all that. And I thought, I want to stick close to these people because they have something that I want.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it was just kind of following or picking people that I felt could mentor me and disciple me, as they say, like teach me. And it wasn't until, honestly, like when my son was, I don't know, like 3 or 4 or 5 years old, and he, I wanted him to go to Sunday school, but he wouldn't go. He would only go to his big sister's class. And so I was like, we really can't do that.
Right.
So I said, well, if I go to your class as the assistant teacher, will you come to Sunday school? And he said yes. So like, all right. So that was like how I got my start.
You're
was
slick.
Like I was the Sunday school helper, and I had so much fun. I was like, I don't want to be the helper. I want to be the teacher. And I was like reading the Bible and like really learning it, and like it was like just this tremendous growth that I had in a very short time, because I just was devouring the Bible and devouring other books to help me understand the Bible, and I couldn't read enough. Like I just couldn't read enough. And so I was like, well, now I want to help people. Like I want other people to experience what I did and grow. And so I guess there came a point, like when my kids were little, that I thought, well, okay, I really like teaching Sunday school. What else can I do? What, and what other ministries? Let me, it was like a buffet. And I was like, I want to try a little bit of everything. So like I went on my first mission trip and I loved it. And I went on, anything I could to like experience ministry in all its different forms. And ultimately I thought, well, I want to spend time with people, especially people who are hurting, and just be there for them and listen to them, visit them in the hospital, that kind of stuff. And I thought, so I started doing that, and I thought, well, I don't really know how to help them other than like showing up and listening. Like what else can I do to help them? Like I don't have the tools.
Right.
So that's when I decided to go back to school for counseling, because I wanted more training. And then in that program is when I decided I want to like make a job out of this. Like I want to do this.
Yeah.
And so like that was kind of the process.
Threw the engineering thing to the side.
Yeah. Well, eventually, yeah. Like kind of the big moment came when I took all my engineering books and donated them. Like that was the decision day of like, okay, I'm really switching careers at this point. I'm letting go of my old career and I'm all in with this new ministry or this new vocation.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, it was. And people are like, huh? Like, you gave up what?
Yeah, right. So was your husband supportive the entire time?
He was.
In the
beginning, he was a little
also?
surprised,
Right,
but
right.
But he was supportive, and he's like, if this is what you feel like you need to do, then go ahead and do it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. There you go. Support your spouses, folks. All right? No matter what. Unless it's, bad choices. But this was a great choice. Yeah. But okay, great. Do you have we were talking a lot about suffering. So like, let's say, a lot of people suffer. What would be your advice or any kind of wisdom you could spread on someone who's suffering, whether that's a loss of a loved one, a friend, maybe they lost an opportunity, a job, any kind of loss. Maybe they're struggling with their self-awareness. Anything? Do you have anything you could spread?
Yeah. How much time do you have?
Oh, we have lots. We have lots.
Well, yeah, because we all know we're all grievers. Like we're all suffering in some way.
Yes.
Like none of us escapes this life without some degree of suffering, and it comes, like you said, in many different forms.
Yeah. And
I think my counsel to people is to take your time with it. Like you can't rush it. Like you can't be like, all right, I want to feel better. I want to get this behind me. I want to get over it. You have to spend time in it to understand what suffering is and not be afraid of it and not say like, I'm going to numb it. I'm going to drink it away. I'm going to be busy so I don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
My counsel is you have to sit with it and you have to understand what you're feeling. Like, what are you thinking and what are you feeling? Because you may be feeling a whole soup of feelings. Like,
Right.
I'm sad, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I'm relieved, I'm confused. Like, you have to kind of identify all those feelings and understand on some level what it is that you're going through.
Right. And why.
And
Yeah,
why, yeah.
yeah.
And then, like, eventually you might start thinking about, well, what's the purpose behind this? Is there some meaning to this? And people answer that question all different ways. But it's a great question to ask. Like, you know, a lot of people say, what good could possibly come from this? Well, you may never know.
Right.
But I think the suffering, like, as Christians, we believe that suffering produces something. Like, as you walk through suffering, it produces something in you, which ultimately leads to hope. And it may be a while before you get there.
Yeah.
But the idea of hope in, there's hope in something beyond myself.
No, seriously. Yeah. You have to go through it. You do, because there's something on the other side. God's not just going to let... This was a message a few episodes ago. God won't walk you to what he won't walk you through.
Yeah.
He's not going to bring you to a situation that he can't get you out of. He's not going to put you through something because he loves you and he cares about you. He's not going to put you through something where it's like, you might be struggling. You might be struggling for a while. But there's a purpose behind it, kind of like you said. And they say the grass isn't greener, but in this case, the grass is greener. So you kind of have to suffer. We all suffer. Some less than others, some more than others. But, you know, yeah. That kind of makes me think so. There's a quote from the late, great DMX. You know I love him. Everyone here listening knows I love him. He has a quote about suffering. He says, "To live is to suffer, but to survive is to find meaning within the suffering."
Oh, that's fantastic.
So you gotta. You don't. Nobody wants to suffer.
Right.
Nobody does, but almost always there's something that comes out of it. So
Yeah. Yep.
yeah. And you were talking about questions for God. I say this often, oftentimes. I have questions for God, but I never question God. You can't, because he knows way more than I know. He knows all.
Yeah.
One of the oldest quotes in the book, God's plan. It's all part of God's plan, and it is. So just hunker down, settle down, pray, have patience, and you will see the progress. Tying it back into the message of the week. But
yeah, it's a great message.
It's yeah, I don't know. Many times it seems like, you wanna. Why, you kind of mentioned it way earlier in the show, like, why is this happening to me? Like, people are angry with God, and then that's when they shy away. But I think if they just pray and seek for the answers they come with the patience, and then they might have a different different just like opinion or feeling about what they're going through. So
yeah. I read there's this book called The Dark Night of the Soul, which talks about, like, when you're in the midst of suffering and you feel like I'm never going to get out of this, basically. And that sense that sometimes God is silent, and people think, well, if God is silent, maybe that means he's not paying attention or he doesn't care. But really, that it's in the silence that we crave God more, and we pursue God more, and that's what he wants. Like, sometimes I think he's silent on purpose because he wants us to ask those tough questions.
Yeah.
Not that we're going to get the answers, but it's in the asking of the questions that we're pursuing God, and we're saying, I want to know you more, God, and know myself too in the process. And that's where all the growth comes in.
Absolutely. Oh man, I feel this is needed. I think this is needed for me. I think this is needed for the people who are listening. I think this is going to target a specific audience. But take what we're saying here, because this is important. So you have a passage or two that you have a beautiful book. I don't even know what's in their book, but I love it.
No, this is a Bible.
Great.
I have, of course, being a pastor and a chaplain, I have the sacred texts of all the major religions, but for the Bible, I have I don't know, a lot. I have the Bible that stays in my purse, the Bible that I use for preaching.
Amazing.
So this one is a counseling Bible.
Okay.
And so it has all the scriptures, but it has topics of different types of suffering, basically, like anxiety or depression or anything really. And it gives scriptures that relate to all of those different topics that we all go through. But I wanted to read Psalm 121 because I love the Psalms, because the Psalms, they're like songs, and they're songs that somebody wrote to God to reflect what we're feeling and who we are. And they're not necessarily happy because we're not always happy.
Right.
And so they really reflect all the different human emotions that we have. And so some of the Psalms are like, God, kill my enemy. And it's like, wait, that's in the Bible? Or it's like, God, are you giving up on me?
Yeah.
Did you forget me?
Yeah.
So it has all that in it. It's like beautiful stuff and
honest
deep
stuff.
Yeah. So this one is Psalm 121. It's one of my very favorite Psalms.
Okay.
It says, I will lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He will not allow your foot to be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve you from all evil. He shall preserve your soul. The Lord shall preserve your going out and your coming in, from this time forth and even forevermore. Now, I wanted to tell you that, so earlier today, I was with a friend he died about 2 hours ago. He was on life support, and his wife asked me to come to the hospital and be there when they took him off of life support. And it was really difficult because this wasn't like a normal hospice patient. This was someone younger and who I had worked with in counseling for several years and watched his suffering and walked alongside of him in his suffering until he finally passed into the presence of the Lord. But I read this psalm at his bedside earlier today and talked to him and talked to his family about this idea that the Lord watches over us in our comings and goings. And sometimes it's our comings and goings, in and out of our house, but it's also our comings and goings in and out of this life, our birth and our death.
Right.
And so it's like so profound.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, this is, it's not just talking about one situation in your life, it's talking about your whole life. It's really amazing.
I want to say I'm sorry for the loss.
Thanks.
I knew that you had to do that earlier today. We were going to try to reschedule, but you were adamant on coming today because the message is important.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here for. So, I feel like we should take a brief moment for your friend. I think that just makes sense. Yeah, this life thing is tough. It is tough. Really tough. And so we need more people like you. I will say that. I'll stand by that. You're very important to the community. I would say everyone you've come in contact with. So thank you on their behalf. I'm going to say it on their behalf. But thank you. I just want to say this real quick. I would like you to read another passage, but when you were praying to God, I feel like people do this often where they're always asking for something. Like, God, fix or help me. I think, like, yeah, you pray to God, but I think you should start by thanking Him for what He's already gave you. So, like me, as soon as I wake up, I thank Him for waking me up. Every single day. Because tomorrow's not promised.
Right.
So when you wake up, thank God for waking you up. Thank Him for waking your family and your friends up. I think he wants to hear that. He wants to hear that you're thankful and you're grateful for what he gives you constantly and what he's already gave you. The air you have to breathe, the food you have to eat, the place you have to sleep in. Some people sleep on the sidewalks. It's, it's crazy to think about. Like, I can't even imagine that for an hour. People do that every day.
Yeah.
So thank God first, and then pray for whatever you want to pray for. But I think a prayer of thankfulness is more important than the rest of the things you're going to pray for. Like, yeah, you should ask God for some guidance, some strength. But before you do that, thank him for what he's already given you. He's already given you some strength. Like, you keep going day after day. So I just want to make that clear, because some people, I think, they think that prayer is just, I'm asking for God to do something for me. He's going to do it. But thank him first. Because he's got you this far. You came into this world because he decided, yeah, sure, this one. And you know what I mean? And, and you go from there. So thank God. All right? And I just thought about this. So I have this new thing here on the table. It was a gift from a great friend of mine, Taryn. You know Taryn.
Yeah.
And it says, she gave this to me for my birthday. And it was in my room until today. It says, give it to God. Give your worries to God. He will take them and make them light.
That's beautiful.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So we're just going to leave that where it was.
Yeah, Taryn has good taste.
Taryn has a great heart, a pure heart. Like you. Like, you guys have the same, like, aura is the word I was about to say aroma, but that's a smell. Aura. Just pure individuals, and that's we need more of these kind of people. So shout out to Taryn. I know she's gonna be watching this. I was talking about this episode all week. I asked her if she wanted me to ask you anything, and her only question was, were you a party animal back in the day? Because she knew I was going to cover everything else,
Yeah.
But she was like, ask her if she was like a party animal back in the day. No.
Not like a party animal. Like, I was always pretty good. Like, I was a rule follower.
Yeah, good.
But then when I got to college, I let go a little bit.
Right.
And I tried some things, and
it's life.
Yeah.
Right.
I did date a lot of guys, I'd say. I don't really want to settle down too quick.
No, that's okay. That's all right. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go, Darren. Oh, God. Let's bring this back into the energy we want to keep pushing out here. I would like you to read one more thing. I want to feel some more enlightenment. Take your time.
All right. I'm going to read from the Gospels because, the Gospels that's where Jesus does the talking, or a lot of the talking.
Right.
And so it's always a good place to start. Like, if you've never read the Bible before, my suggestion is to start with one of the Gospels. You could start with Mark, which is the shortest Gospel. It's always a good place to start. But that's a great place to start reading the Bible, because then you get some of the why. Like John's Gospel gives you why Jesus. And so it's a great place to start, rather than starting in Genesis and trying to work your way forward from there. That's a tough read. But I want to read. This is Jesus speaking to his disciples. Jesus had 12 disciples, and they were all a bunch of misfits. Like, they weren't like, your typical the best people in the world.
Yeah.
And so that's the cool thing. Like, Jesus didn't pick like the stars of the class. He picked like the normal people to be his disciples, and that's like the whole point. Like, he doesn't wait for you to like behave, and then he's like, okay, now you can follow me. He's like, no, you over there, like tax collector, you follow me.
Right.
And so he's speaking to his disciples, and this is from John's Gospel, chapter 14, and he's trying to offer them comfort because they're confused and they're upset, and he's like, whoa, and he says, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also. And where I go, and the way you know. And so Thomas, one of the disciples, says to him, Lord, we don't know where you're going, and how can we know the way? I mean, typical, right? And Jesus says to him, I'm the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And I love this, and I read this a lot at funerals. Like, I know we're like talking a lot about a lot of heavy subjects, but this is a reading I do a lot at funerals because it talks about like what happens in the afterlife, and this idea that Jesus talks about the Father's house and having many rooms or mansions, and there's a place for all of us there. And he says, like, if I'm going to get the room ready for you, like a hotel, you make a reservation in the hotel and then you show up and the room's ready for you, right at the right time. Right. And a lot of people stumble over this passage because when Jesus says, I am the way and the truth and the life, no one comes to the Father through me. And people are like, well, what about Buddhists? And what about Jews? And what about, people of other religions? Like, does that mean they're all shut out of heaven? And I say, no, like our experience of Jesus, like, isn't limited to, one path. It's not just this church or that church or, anyone could experience Jesus through me. Like, if I love people with the love of Jesus, they're experiencing Jesus. Right. Whether I say his name or not. Right. Because I'm doing it in his name. Yeah. So I feel like this passage gets abused a lot. Like, no, you must do things everything this way, otherwise you won't go to heaven. And I think God's a lot more merciful than we give him credit for.
I agree.
And our experience of Jesus can take many, many forms.
Amen. This is actually so Taryn did have another question. Okay. Do you have a favorite verse in the Bible? Like, is there anything that, like, anytime you read it, it's just you often go to it, or if someone asks you the same question I just asked you, do you have a favorite verse? Or
I'm gonna look it up so I don't mess it up. It's actually it's one of the shortest. Of course, my favorite verse is one of the short ones because it's easy to remember. But it's from Philippians, and this was a letter. Philippi was a place where one of the early churches was established, and the Apostle Paul wrote a letter to the church at Philippi. It's called Philippians, and so near the beginning of this letter, Paul writes, and this is, if you want to look it up, is Philippians chapter 1, verse 21. For to me, to live is Christ, and to die is gain. And that's it. And that's one of my very, very favorite verses. To live is Christ, and to die is gain. So whether you live or die, it's all for the glory of God. And death isn't the end of us. And it's like it's affirmation that there's something beyond death. Like, to die is gain. Like, we're going to gain a place in heaven. But for our time here living on earth, we live for Christ, and we do everything to his glory. Yeah.
You should.
Yeah,
ideally. Put that on. Ideally. That's a great word. Yeah. Ooh, okay, so there you go. So I actually told a former guest on this show that I was going to have you on, and I said, do you have any questions for her that you would want to hear her give an answer on? And I'm going to read his question.
Okay.
His name's Pat. He was on episode 34. But here we go. It was a very good question. I want to read it because I don't want to mistake it, mess up the words. He says, in a world where so many young people are going away from the faith, how would you encourage them to come back?
Oh, that's so great. Because I have two of my kids are in college, and I've watched them wrestle with their faith. Like, even though I brought them up as Christians, like, I see them wrestling, and I see that kids, when they reach a certain age, they get very cynical, and they start seeing the hypocrisy of Christians in particular, but of, like, we say one thing and we do another, or we're not loving people very well, and, like, I don't have to explain to you, like, we see it all the time, and young people, they can smell hypocrisy like that, and they're like, no, I don't want to be a part of that, and so my encouragement is that God is so much bigger than us and the church and people who run the church. Like, we're all flawed people. We're all sinners. We're all screw ups, even those who follow God.
Right.
We all mess up.
We all make mistakes, for sure. Regardless if you are a follower or not. But, you got to have faith, and God forgives.
Yeah.
If your mindset is right, and, for sure. But I agree. Like, I think the more, like, people are going away from their faith, like, especially, like, with social media and all this kind of stuff, like, people can say anything. So, like, one person who has, like, some notoriety might say, like, God isn't real. And then all the person's followers are just going to be like, yeah, well, this person said God isn't real, so... And they will just, like, kind of put it in the back burner instead of, like, maybe I should try to seek this out and, find out for myself. But that was a wonderful question, because I think a lot of people younger people especially, are going away from it. And we need to bring them in, because...
one of the things, some religious traditions, like the Sikh tradition, when the kids get to be about 13 years old, they send them out on purpose to go find their faith. And they're like, you know what? Go check out other religions, check out whatever you need to check out, and then come back with your statement of faith. Like, what do you believe? And I think we should do that for every kid. Like, you know what? If you're going to have faith, you need to own it. You can't borrow your parents' faith. You need to find it for yourself, and, with guidance. But to be able to send a young person out and say, you know what? You need to question, you need to doubt, you need to talk to people, you need to explore, and trust that with some guidance, they'll come back and settle on a faith that's real, because it's theirs, and it's their relationship to God, not somebody else's. And going to the root of not like religious rituals or practices, or you have to do things this way, but it starts with the relationship. Like, it all comes down to our relationship with God and ourselves, and finding the divine within ourselves and finding the divine outside of ourselves, and really helping to understand, what is that relationship? What does it mean to love God? What does it mean that He loves us? And answering that question for ourselves. And then, worshiping God in a way that's authentic for us. Like, it may not, like, this church may not be a good fit for you because it just doesn't speak to you.
Right.
But there is one out there that will. And I think for young people, a lot of people are lost because they haven't found, like they haven't defined that relationship, and they haven't found the right place where that relationship can really thrive and grow. But I know it's out there. I trust it's out there. And so I say to young people, don't give up. Like, keep asking those tough questions and keep looking for God. You will find Him. And you may find Him in the most unusual places, but you'll find Him.
Absolutely. You will find Him. Again, have questions for God, but never question God. Like, truthfully, that was great. Okay, great. Great answer and great question.
Yeah, that was a good question.
It's important that we are... God is love. Spread it. They always say, spread love. You should be spreading love and kindness. But spread the word of God, too, while you're at it. Because it all comes from Him.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I actually just saw this. So this is... I wanted to bring this up earlier. This is kind of a little on the comedic side. So you're from Boston. You grew up in Massachusetts. These are a handful, 5 Boston quote-unquote slang words. And I want you to elaborate on, first off, how you would pronounce it, and what it means. So read one by one here.
Yeah. No.
There's only 5.
Okay. These are great. So I want to say that when I moved to Philadelphia, I had a little bit of a Boston accent, like not as bad as my parents. My parents have very thick Boston accents.
Okay.
But so when I moved to Philly, it took about a year for me to lose my accent. Although people who are from New England can usually pick it up. Like, even though I've pretty much lost it, they can pick it up. So the first slang word that's on the list is hoodsy. So we grew up with they're like little ice cream cups.
Okay.
And they were made by the Hood Dairy Company, and they were called Hoodsies. They were like half vanilla, half chocolate.
Classic.
Like with the paper thing, like
Right.
you peel it off.
They're
and
still
then,
in production today.
yeah,
For sure.
and it's like that was the ice cream we ate as
Okay.
children. So
And also, does it reference something else as well?
I don't know. Does it?
I thought was it a reference to a younger female? No?
Oh,
Never heard that before?
no.
Okay. We'll
That's
scratch
news
that
to
out.
me.
Okay. Scratch that out. Next.
And I'm gonna start asking about that.
Okay.
All right, so the next one is Packy, and like that was a funny one because I bring the terminology with me to Philly, and people
Right.
were like, "What are you talking about?" Like, do a Packy run, What's a Packy run or a Packy? So a package store. So the wine and liquor stores are package stores in Massachusetts. They're called package stores. So a Packy run
Okay.
is obviously
Beer run.
you
So to speak, is how people over here would say, "Oh, I'm going on a beer run."
yeah.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to the pack. Yeah, I'm going to the Packy.
Yeah, there you
What you want?
There you go.
A beer. Where you want for a beer? So yeah, Packy run is going.
There's that Boston accent, that Massachusetts accent.
Yeah. So the next one is the clicker. So the clicker or the clicker is the remote. So, hey, where's the clicker? Pass me the clicker.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So that's the clicker. The next one is Dunkies. So Dunkin' Donuts, I believe, started in the Boston area or Massachusetts.
There you go.
So Dunkies is, we're going to
Okay.
Dunkin' Donuts for anything but donuts.
I hate how they took out the donuts in their name.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
American runs on Dunkin'. That's a fine slogan,
Yeah.
but it's Dunkin' Donuts. Now there's no
Yeah.
donuts. It's just
And like
Dunkin'.
everybody, like on vocabulary tests, everyone spells the donut wrong because it's DONUT.
Yeah.
Like not the
Dough.
real. Yeah.
I got you.
So it's an extra funny joke because every kid gets that wrong. On when it comes up on the vocabulary test. So Dunkies, yeah. The next one is pocketbook.
You gotta say quick.
Pocketbook.
Wait, so how is it spelled? It's spelled Pockabok.
Pocketbook. Yeah, so it's what every woman has, and it's like at least 10 pounds, if not more. Like, they're always big and heavy and bulky. And if you're of a certain generation, like my grandma, my Nana, so if she was at a restaurant, like say this was the table at the restaurant, she'd be like
Moving everything around.
shoving it in her pocketbook.
Oh, I love that.
Like the sugar, the glasses, the salt shaker.
I'm leaving here with
They all go in
something.
the pocketbook. So we would never leave the restaurant empty-handed.
Good,
The
great.
rolls, So so that's why women always had really big pocketbooks.
Stocking up.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That was great. I did want to do that earlier in the show, but it was good. Bring it home. Little comedic relief. Speaking of little comedic relief, this is part of the show that we call Riddles with Vito.
Okay.
So how this works is just, ask you a little riddle. It has nothing to do with your intelligence. We know you're very smart. So at work I do these, and you always are, because they're tough. They are tough.
Yeah.
So once the residents give up, I look at you if you're there, and I'm like, anything? And
Yeah.
sometimes, you have a guess. Sometimes they're really just hard that you can't even figure one out.
Yeah.
But so, this one I saw, you might get the answer, but I thought this was funny. Riddles with Vito. How does Moses make his coffee? How does Moses make his coffee?
Oh boy. I don't know the answer, but it has to do with something like parting.
Good guess. Good guess. Taryn said the same thing. She was like, I don't know, half cream, half like something like
Yeah,
something like
half,
that.
Half and half. Yeah.
How does Moses make his coffee? Oh, I really thought you were gonna get it right away. Not gonna
No.
lie. This is good.
Oh, like,
Anything?
Is it decaf? Like
No sugar. That's the answer.
it turns to blood. Water turns to blood. How does Moses make his coffee?
How does
Staff?
Moses
Does
make
it have
his
something to do with
coffee?
the staff? Or? No, I can't think of
Good, I stumped her.
You stumped me.
Okay, I got it. Are you ready? So, how does Moses make his coffee? He brews it. Hebrew.
Oh, gosh. That's obvious.
The word Hebrew. He brews it.
Of course.
Yeah, that was great.
I should have got that one.
So I feel like that's a common one. I've heard that before.
Yeah.
So I was like, it'll be funny regardless, but I thought, okay, but it's good. That was great. Made it even better. So how does Moses make his coffee? He brews it.
Yeah.
Great. That's how we usually close the show, but we're not going to do that this time. First off, I just want to say thank you for coming.
Oh, it was a pleasure.
It means a lot to me. I know you had a tough day, but you said you wanted to do this, and I definitely wanted to do it as well. I just didn't want to, overwhelm you.
No, it's really, that's the life of a minister. Like, you could go from literally a funeral to a wedding, or a really sad situation to a really joyful. Like, tomorrow I'm doing a wedding.
Oh my goodness.
I'm really excited about that.
Is that the first time you've done a wedding?
No, second time.
Oh, there you go. Good, good.
But yeah, that's you have to learn how to have that perspective so you can go from one thing to another.
Right. How was the first wedding you did? Was it
It was amazing. Oh my gosh. It was on Did I tell you about this?
Mm-mm.
So it was just on Valentine's Day.
Oh, this past Valentine's?
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
And it was a group wedding at the Bucks County Courthouse. So if you're interested, if you want to get married for free, on Valentine's Day at the Bucks County Courthouse, they have a free wedding, and they have all the food, the photography, the flowers, everything.
That's great.
And they do it as a group. So 3 of us, it was a judge, a rabbi, and me.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
We each took a small group, and we did like small group weddings, and it was so fun. It was like amazing. So I had 5 couples, and it was just so joyful. It was like the best day ever.
Great.
So that was a great first experience with a wedding.
Okay. And now tomorrow you have your second.
Yeah.
Do you know these people personally?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
great.
They're in my congregation.
Okay,
so,
great. Good.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so I'm really excited.
Good
for
luck
them.
with that.
Yeah.
I would just, I think I would appreciate, and anyone who's listening and watching, I think they would appreciate if you could close us out here with a prayer, if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely. And, if you're not a praying person, I just encourage you to just close your eyes or just listen along and just see if you can have some still time with God as we pray. So let's pray. Lord God, we thank you that you have given us such a wonderful time together in conversation, that we get to talk about you, Lord, and the many dimensions of God and who you are and how much you love us. And I pray, Lord, that everyone in the sound of my voice today, the sound of our voices today, would seek you out and question you and look for you and find you in all the different places in their lives, in the dark places and in the obvious places, Lord, because you are everywhere and you're loving us, and that all of us who give and receive love, we are doing a sacred act because you are love. And so we thank you for sustaining us and providing us and protecting us and doing all the things for us that we could never, ever do for ourselves. You sent your son, Jesus, to die for us, to rescue us, to give us life, that we would be forgiven, and that we could come freely to you, God, and love you back, and to ask you the tough questions, knowing that you will never leave us, you will never forsake us, that you love us so, so very much. We thank you, and we pray this in your strong and wonderful name. And all the people said, Amen.
Thank you. Truthfully, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Anyone who watched or listened, I hope you enjoyed that. This was amazing for me. I hope it was the same for you. So, again, thank you, Susan.
Oh, my pleasure.
I hope you have a blessed day. You deserve it. I hope everyone who's watching, listening, has a blessed day as well. And a great week ahead. Pick your head up. Smile. Pray. Everything's going to be okay. It is. So, have a great week. Ciao for now.